an innovation program for IT. Over to you, Rubina.
Thank you. Thanks, Padmini. Thank you so much. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for sharing your weekend with us. I would like to introduce the esteemed panel. Mr. Rakesh Bhardwaj is the Global CIO for Cognizant and ensures that Cognizant remains in the forefront of innovation as a technology-powered business. He leads the global IT function and is in charge of the organization's core digital strategy. He has over 2 decades of experience in operational as well as strategic roles across several industry sectors. And prior to joining Cognizant, he worked with Microland as the Chief Delivery Officer. He was also with General Electric for 18 years, donning several global leadership roles. And he is a proud recipient of the Corporate Award for Excellence in Gender Inclusivity instituted by NASSCOM, apart from the GE Women's Network Award for Fostering Diversity. Thank you, Mr. Rakesh, for joining us. Next, I would like to introduce, thank you. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Dharmendra Rangayan, who is the CIO for India and SAARC region in Cisco Systems, where he focuses on overall growth, employee productivity, and experience. He leads IT client experience that emphasizes on collaboration, end-user compute, mobility, video, network, emerging technologies, and campus implementation. Prior to joining Cisco, Dharmendra has served Srijana Technologies, ITTI Private Limited, both in Bangalore, Siemens, Empros, and Oracle, both in US, and then he moved back to India in 2002. He is the proud recipient of IDG's CIO 100 Top Disruptive CIO Award 2019. Welcome, Dharmendra. Next, I would like to introduce Ms. Anita Vijayakrishnan. She's the Vice President for IT Shared Services at VMware. She leads application integration development, application support, integrated IT quality assurance, and release planning. In addition, she acts as the country head for all India IT. Prior to VMware, she was with Honeywell Technology Solutions, where she spent more than a decade donning multiple leadership roles. She's a very passionate D&I leader and has driven key initiatives as part of India leadership, as an outcome of which VMware India has bagged the Economic Times CSR Award 2019, Jobs for Her Diversity Award 2020, and Zinnov Diversity and Inclusion Award 2020. Thanks, Anita, for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm not able to get my video. I'll just...
Cool. And I would also like to welcome Mr. Shrivats Prabhakar, who is the founder of Servify. He's a corporate executive turned serial entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience in the field of customer experience, technology, and management. He founded a fully bootstrapped venture, The Service Solutions, in 2009 to deliver technology-driven customer service. He started his second ambitious venture, Servify, in 2015, and which has already grown to be the largest device management and proactive ownership platform in India. He has worked with companies like Nokia, Tata Teleservices, LG Electronics, Samsung, and BPL Limited before becoming an entrepreneur in 2009. He also works with several startups as an advisor and an angel investor. He's a noted speaker in industry forums such as CSCII and CSCMP. Thank you, Srivatsa, for joining us. Thank you. So I'll just wait for Mr. Dharmendra to join. We'll just give him a couple of minutes.
In the meantime, Rubina, checking 1, 2, 3. It's all good? Audio?
Good. Yes, it's coming across good.
Thank you.
Am I audible, Rubina? I don't know, for some reason my video is not detecting my camera. Very, very weird. Yeah.
Anita, can you try a Chrome browser and just refresh once again?
I'm on Chrome, but yeah, for some reason my video is not getting activated.
Is there any pop-up on the browser?
No, unfortunately not. Anyways, can I quickly even join back again?
Yes, sure, Anita. So in the meantime, we're just waiting for two more panelists to get started. Okay, so I think we can get started, and while they join, okay, cool, Anita. Now we can
See two Anitas.
see your video.
I see two
Exactly.
Anitas. One of them has to be.
I think this is called Ekta Kapoor effect.
Thanks, Rakesh. Yeah.
This is a new unstable normal which we are all living in. Huh? Okay. Back to you,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Rubina.
This is actually
Sorry about that.
work
Yeah.
2.0, right? So
Yes.
in fact, this is exactly what is work 2.0. So
Yeah, so I
imagine the
have
tech
two
challenge.
versions of mine, which is automatically on audio as well as video and audio, so that we can always make ourselves omnipresent in all kind of situations.
Okay,
Right.
okay, sure.
Yeah.
So just to give it, start the context, like companies, we know that they are no longer bound by proximity to physical office spaces, and the way we are doing work and innovation. Is there an echo that you're hearing?
No.
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 No? Okay, perfect. Okay, so the way we are changing is becoming more dynamic and flexible, and the future of work will focus on people first in a way that's more diverse, open, efficient, and hopefully healthy for both companies and employees. So again, thanks a lot, for sharing your time on a weekend to all the panelists. Let's begin with. I would like to know your perspective on, is the concept for distributed workforce and working remote for real? Do you think it's going to work in India and in the future? Would like to begin with Mr. Rakesh. Would you like to go ahead?
So let me put it this way. I think the entire industry has been on this journey for a while. Let me first state that. The last 100 days has practically completely accelerated it. In my mind, the technology companies don't look at the boundaries or the borders, I call it. So in that spirit, I think it's here to stay. It's going to get accelerated. Yes, there are some traditional operating models of companies, whether it is from a employee manager relationship, recruitment, retention, all those will be challenged. Like we have all spoken about cloud first, mobile first, I think the new design will be remote first, if I may say. I think those were the last things we always used to think, right? Now I think they want to be right in the front. So in my mind, it's here to stay. And depending on the industry and the type of work the industry and the people do, it may vary, what to the extent of what percentage of people will work from home versus what percentage will come actually to office. But it's here to stay.
Thank you.
I agree with what Rakesh is saying. Right? There were these perceptions and these myths that we always carried, that certain functions could not be remote, certain groups of people could not work remote, and also the typical mindset that we have seen in the Indian industry per se, especially from a technology standpoint, that it was important for us to be at a physical workplace to collaborate.
Yeah.
That was always an ask. And though we have seen remote working and distant distributed working in other countries and in global scenarios, but in India, it was always a norm, and the physical workplace was given a lot of importance. I think the pandemic has really, really changed that rhetoric quite a lot for all of us. And it has really nullified that perception that people carried, both from a leadership standpoint as well as from an employee base, stating that now anybody can work remote. So much so that I used to always hear that engineering workforce, because of their requirement of being very, very close to the labs, could not work remote. But yes, there is still a necessity of some of the essential staff who manage the labs for the larger workforce to be present physically. But now I think the pandemic has again nullified that thought process that a lot of us can not work remote. And we've been doing that for the last several months now, and we've been doing it very, very well. So I think that it's here to stay. There is definitely, again, with what Rakesh said, there's definitely this thought process that companies have to put in place in terms of saying that, what percentage of our workforce can be remote and what cannot be, what functions can be remote, what cannot be. I think that thought process has to be evolved, and that has to be revisited time and again. And it's not something that's carved in stone, but we need to reevaluate it on a constant basis, and then we need to kind of move forward.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anita.
Yeah, so certainly, I think, like both Rakesh and Anita mentioned, we always worked remote in the past too, right? So if you see the great BPO example, I mean, all of these companies supported remote to global clients. I think technology had blurred those operating models already. I think it's more to do with non-work priorities in work environments. And like Anita rightly mentioned, we were mostly, I mean, with due respect, we were a biased environment, right? Especially the experienced lot. They thought without the bosses, the teams don't work. I think that has certainly changed. I think it's in your head now. And certainly a lot of those tools that we never used for effective people management, effective workplace management, I mean, collaboration tools, right? I think with those tools now, which have become kind of necessity, I think we are now realizing that remote work is possible. It's not that you need to be always on your team's heads to get work done. But I think what is changing is probably, again, is there a ring? Somebody is ringing, if I'm not wrong. Okay. I think, you can't really have complete work from home also, probably because people need a blend of, or the right blend of work from home and when necessary, interact with people, because at the end of the day, every organization is a combination of people. I think we need to have that right balance, but certainly work 2.0 probably will become work 3.0, and it is there to stay forever now.
Right.
Thanks,
Yes.
Shri.
Just one more aspect, Rubina. I think that though organizations are going through the paradigm, I think that from an India standpoint, especially, the government also has to really kind of change
Correct.
its thought process. There are a number of regulatory requirements today that do not prevent, that prevent into this kind of mode that we are talking about, and want to really kind of break the glass ceiling when it comes to distributed working and remote working. I think that the government also needs to kind of really play a part in enabling that, working very, very closely with corporate. I think there's a lot of things that we have seen change in the past several months to enable that. I think there's a lot more that needs to be done, and we, along with technology, firms as well as associations like NASSCOM, have been actively engaging with the government to make this happen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome, Dharmendra. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes. So,
sorry, I had an IT issue being part of IT, so I had to say that.
No worries. Very good.
This is a new normal, buddy.
So I think what it wants to do is that it wants to check whether we are still in line with our fundamentals and our grassroots, and we are able to solve problems on our own.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rubina, probably this is a clear example of how efficient we are yet or not. I think we are learning. So if you see really physical workplaces, if we had to have a meeting, we wouldn't have spent first 10 minutes setting up IT issues, right? But I think that's becoming part of life. So probably we are working more than 8 hours if we are supposed to work 8 hours, but
Absolutely.
on probably 12 hours. I think that's the blur that we need to now get probably more streamlined and make this really part of our regular day-to-day working.
Yes, and it's even teaching us empathy in a new way altogether.
Absolutely.
So
Impatience to patience.
Correct. So coming to the next, question that I wanted to pose to all of you is, what do you think are the advantages or opportunities that are coming out of this crisis? What do you see, we can, in which direction are we going, and what more new opportunities can come out? Dharmendra, would you like to take this question?
And sorry, I was a little late. So what was the first question? This was around remote working?
Sure. Yes. The first question was, do you think that distributed workforce will work in India and in the future? Is this something for real? Do you think that?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. And in fact, looking at our IT cases, I can tell you for sure, right? The people are all over India. And I'm also reading news like techies who have built the workplace on the top of the hill, right? Which has good network access, right? And Kerala government recently had this whole work near home campaign. So I think people are catching up, and it is real, in my opinion. It's coming.
Awesome. Thanks, Dharmendra. And what do you think are the opportunities that are coming out during this time of crisis?
Yeah, I think so the whole work-life integration, definitely, we can do a lot more things now, right? And I would like to put it in the 4 E's construct, right? So you have the employee and the consumers in one hand, you have economy and the countries, right? And then you have the whole environment and sustainability, and then finally, obviously, the employer or the business, right? So these are the 4 E's that I would like to call out. Now, imagine your talent pool, right? And I used to have the Disney Park theme, right? It's a small, small world and frolicking the whole spirit of international unity, right? And now think about global talent pool, irrespective of your location, only skills matter, right? And that's what the whole employee landscape has changed. And it has become really inclusive and very democratic access, right, to all the services, banking, education, healthcare, you name it, right? Second bucket is the whole employer or the business, right? Reducing our operational cost, better flexibility with our workforce, and really putting the trust and the customer experience at the center of everything, right? And the third E is your economy and the country, right? Very distributed and very balanced economic growth. That's what we can foresee. The gig economy and work from anywhere to bring more women into workforce, right? And simply on the gender diversity, right? The recent McKinsey studies found that, we could add up to about 770 billion, is 18% to its GDP, right? More than 18% to its GDP by 2025, simply by giving equal opportunities to the women, right? So there is that advantage also. And finally, the environment sustainability. When have you seen the greener earth before, right? It is never seen such a greener earth. With reduced carbon emissions, investments in smart and sustainable living will be the key. I think a lot of advantages. How do we seize that opportunity and transform? I think that's the question to all of us in the industry.
Absolutely. And coming to the challenges which we are facing with new hires. So, I'd like to pose this question to Rakesh. How do you think, or what are the challenges that you're dealing with, during recruiting the millennials as well as recruits?
It's a great question and a very perfect question in the setting we are in right now. Honestly speaking, as this is for, like the title says, the workplace and the workforce. I think there is a clear pivoting of change happening on all the 3 dimensions. The flexibility and the quest for meaning is becoming the new face of work. I think the word workplace is getting replaced with workspace now. And the workforce is all about the millennials. If I even look at Cognizant, more than 70% of our people are below 27, and that means something very different. So the entire employee branding, right? The candidate branding, the employer branding, I think is all in the center of everything. It's no more about office, it's about smart spaces. So there are a bunch of those things which I call it what typical taken as a corporate communications or corporate marketing kind of initiatives now are at the center stage of what the companies are trying to do, right from the universities and colleges right up to coming in, and then after that getting onto the projects and so on. The big ones which I think is going to be, you touched on it, I think everybody as humans, our senses respond strongly when we can touch and feel something. In the virtual world, believe me, that's going to be a big one, especially when you're starting new. It's like telling somebody, hey, you start on the job today and your manager is going to show up on a video like this, and your induction will happen. And by the way, when things get normal, maybe we'll get together for a coffee. Right? It's a very different upbringing. Point number 1. Point number 2, I think today's way of learning is going to be very different from the way we all have been trained. For us, training and learning was a separate time on our calendar. I think going forward, it will be part of the work.
Absolutely.
The kind of projects you do. I sometimes feel that communication has become so cheap. And when I say cheap, I don't mean price. I mean, it has got broken into so many pieces that there are narrow circles of hyper specialization which are coming in these roles, right? And the world of generalist is shrinking because those pieces are becoming more hyper specialist, and you can tap into, like Dharmendra said and Srivatsa said, anybody anywhere in the world now in that spirit. So those are the kind of challenges. And on top of it, I would say there's one challenge which I personally feel, and this I see even in my own kids. I'm an 18-year-old, and clearly self-management is going to be one key aspect if I have to pick one, because this world thinks little different, than the way we all have grown in a typical corporate world. So that self-management is going to be key to having the kind of outcomes we are looking at in the future. That would be some thoughts for consideration of this group and for the viewers on this call. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rakesh. My next question would be to Sri. Sri, what do you think are the new, what change do we have to bring about in terms of mindset and practices to make this work 2.0 successful?
Sure. So I think, of course, coronavirus is a big leveler, right? So there is no big or small company. I think there is, like Dharmendra also mentioned, I think Anita mentioned, there is no competition any longer. Now you look at partnerships. I can give you an example. A security services provider, security services provider company is now supplying sanitizers, and the tagline they said is, we always protected computer viruses. Now we are protecting viruses for your body. So I think it's how you pivot to your business. But when it comes to people, I can tell you, I have a 7-year-old kid. For me, my son learns faster these technologies. Think of those teachers. They've never, ever used to teaching on a digital medium. I think that's where empathy comes in play. So for me, as a founder of a company which has about 26-year-old average age audience, and mostly the tech developers and the smart new age, I think the new normal, it's unfortunately, we were always used to a controlled office environment, which forced us to be structured and disciplined. And this is a place, home is a place where we wanted to relax after a long work day or etc. So I think the work-life balance that we call, I think is now really blurred, right? Because the new normal is forcing us to be self-disciplined, even when we are in a very relaxed home environment next to our families and kids. So this is a true test of work-life balance, as you're working now in a place where you're supposed to get the required balance. So I think, so for me, the way I look at it is, historically, we always looked at IQ and EQ. IQ is for, looking at intelligent quotient, definitely very smart people, individual contributors. Then as leaders, you are looking at emotional quotient. But I think now it's time to really look at beyond emotional quotient, also emotional empathy, because this is where, you need to really be motivating the teams, because, like all the people, you can already see examples of people getting demotivated, taking some of the harsh decisions. I think it's time really for leadership to spend time in getting their people together, empathize with them, constantly communicate, probably over communicate, because it's not just the people that are working from home. Even inside the homes, you have your families getting used to this new normal or your work 2.0 realities. So I think for me, it's all about empathy, and leadership really needs to step up, because it's no more just about getting those organizational KPIs. For me, every single organization now needs to have empathy as a KPI, people motivation factors as KPIs, not just those shareholder KPIs. It's stakeholder KPIs that's more important. So I would spend a lot of time in getting this right in this kind of work environment, which is going to be real, for times to come.
Thank you so much, Sri.
Rubina, can I add to that, please?
Yes.
I think the manager mindset has to change quite a lot, especially in this country, because of the fact that we've never been used to this kind of a working environment and a working culture, the working setup, right? Yes, we used to do remote working. It used to be one-off days based on a request that you would put in. But when you are going to be thinking about working distributed and working remote for permanently or fairly long time, I think the manager trust on employees has to really transform and change. That leadership has to get up leveled quite a lot, in terms of saying that I am now going to be worried about outcomes and deliverables, not when you're working and what time you're logging in, right? Everybody would have schedules. Everybody needs to have that flexibility. And I think that, like, I really admire what Sri said in terms of KPIs starting to become, very, very different in terms of empathy and really starting to focus on more on the EQ piece. I think that mental health is going to start becoming extremely important because now you're closeted in your home. You're not walking around quite a lot. You're sitting in front of your laptop for hours and just staring into your screen and getting onto these video calls. I think that the way the people are going to behave and react in the future is going to really be different from what it was when they were in the physical workplace. Being able to relate to it, understand it, and then start dealing with it is going to be a very, very important aspect that the manager has to build in as a part of the skills that he has or he or she has and is going to require for the future.
Absolutely, Anita. Thank you so much. And just, you also helped answer one of the questions from our audience, because mental health is one of the top topics that's going on, right? And coming to mental health, can tech play a better role in managing it? So my question to Dharmendra, to you would be, how are we transforming IT infrastructure to support Work 2.0, and how can tech help people remain healthy?
Sure, and I think we are pretty much everyone said this, right? We are seeing a lot of doctors and psychiatrists coming into our all hands, right? Or the yoga instructors during the offsite, spending 15-20 minutes to sort of detox, right? So there's a lot of trends that we are seeing which we did not see it in the workplace, right? So I think there is a lot of that evolution also that's happening. Now, when you talk being healthy, we have to look at holistically, right? It is not just physical or mental, but also the cyber security. We need to keep our employees safe from the cyber frauds, right? So even before COVID-19 stuck, right, we had seen this whole technologies disrupting and transforming new business models, right? So I strongly believe, I think we were somewhere preparing ourselves for the worst, and then now that we need to act, right? So when I was growing up, and just to put it in perspective, right, I would get up in the morning, looking at my hand and saying, Karagri Vasate Lakshmi, right? What it really means is we pray to the goddess Lakshmi for money or wealth, goddess Saraswati for knowledge, and then for goddess Gauri or Govinda for health, right? And all three are needed for a healthy life. Now, this mantra holds both spiritual and material meaning, right? Now, the definition has changed, right? So, Karagre Vasate Bhim, which is our UPI, Karamadhe YouTube or Udemy, right? Where we go to learn and reskill ourselves. Karamune to my fitness pal, right? I want to be, physically strong and fit, right? And then Prabhate mobile darshanam, right? That is how we start our mornings, right? And it is not just for digital natives, okay? It is not just for digital natives. So my mom attends virtual bhajans and does online pujas, right? So it's not just digital natives, right? So we have those technology app component already, but the way we look at them now will be different, right? The CIO organization needs to play a very important role of an orchestrator in bringing different set of technologies and apps together, right? Just a couple of examples, and this is my only plugin from Cisco, right, perspective. So when you return to work, the biggest thing on everyone's mind is how do we keep themselves safe, right? So if you're entering a conference room, and then how do you know if the room has been sanitized after the previous meeting, right? Simple use case. So we had this WebEx platform, and we had a lot of these IoT APIs built. So we brought them together and said, the WebEx display will tell you whether the room is sanitized or not, right? So that's one simple use case that we are looking at, right? Similarly, the DNS spaces that our flagship product has a very safe distancing use case that we are talking about, where it will send signals to all the WPR command center, and it will tell you whether we are keeping the safe distance or not, right? So workplace policies need to change dynamically, right, to sort of enable that. So did we do anything else with this? No, because we had our Wi-Fi technology and we used that, right? So we combined different technologies to bring this together, right? And the last part I talked about was the whole cyber security aspect. And every CIO is now thinking, and I think Rakesh brought it up during our sync-up call, right? The whole zero trust security mindset that we are bringing. So net-net, I think CIO organization has a very important role to play. as an orchestrator, keeping our employees safe and healthy with everything that is available with us today.
Absolutely.
The biggest thing which is coming out I call it the new unstable normal before it really becomes the new normal, is the entire aspect about social distancing and personal health. And it's very true in all the developing countries around the globe. Nothing new only for the subject for India. I think we all know that these two subjects have been dragged with the obsession of productivity overweighing every other possible way. I think it's going to take the center stage. Part of it is the maturity of the social strata. Give a very hierarchical mindset. Whether you look at India, China, and many other countries around us, I think that barrier is getting completely broken, practically overnight. Right? On March 17th, when the Prime Minister announced it, overnight, everybody started working from home, practically, right?
Yeah.
So think about it, 100,000 plus workers overnight, getting enabled. Sure, it took a while to get stabilized. No doubt, governments help, companies help. So, and all of this is possible. A is around the ecosystem around you. And the B, in my mind, is the technology. The point I made earlier, we don't look at borders at all when we deploy technology. Now, self-management, the point I made, is the most important aspect. Let me tell you, we have used work from home. Now I call it home at work. Balance, work-life balance. All these, I think, at the end of the day, is in your control. Yes, people believe you're always on because now you are at home, kind of a thinking, mindset, weekday, weekend, long hours, all those, but that discipline has to come in. It has to come in from an organization. It has to come from a manager. It has to come from an employee to say, hey, no, learn how to say no, because all that balancing has to come in. They existed, by the way, in an office setup. It's just that some balls were juggling higher than the rest. Now with the change in the, what I call the bedrock at the bottom, the other balls need to go up. So entire empathy and health or fitness, generally speaking, will have to take a center stage. Otherwise, this is going to be non-sustainable for everybody from a long period standpoint. And maybe to an extent, I call it even unhealthy in a domestic setup.
Absolutely.
Because it will be, because it's like one of the stories I recently read where a grandmother tells the boy, tell your manager to get used to it. This is our home. So this kind of little noise at the back and this kind of music at the back is part of our life. It's not meant to be separate. So I think some of these are what I call very legitimate points. Yes, may exist more in this part of the world than some other societies of the world. That's part of life. But I think it's very normal. The chantings and other noise at the back, it's very normal in a life for us. So I think it's more acceptability of some of these things are part of life versus saying that, hey, they are the noise or they are the aliens, So I think glad to see that these kind of things will get its own, what I call, deserved positioning and importance, like you said, in the overall construct of a new work package, because the new generation very clearly wants to do anything and everything in the 5 working days. Not like you and me who would wait for the weekend to do certain things, right? These guys want to do anything and everything in the hours they get. So in that, this balance has to come. And we as managers need to embrace that. Let me tell you, it's not them. Because they're used to it, right from their upbringing, like how we got used to things when we were in teens and 20s, when we were coming out of the college. So exactly the same. So we have to support them to be more successful than the other way around.
Yes, absolutely, Rakesh.
Yeah.
And Thank you so much. It was also one of the audience question, like how does the mindset of a manager has to change? They have been used to a certain way of operating, but now, they have to change altogether. So thank you so much.
No more control mindset. Managers cannot operate with control mindset. They have to operate with influence.
Correct.
Because that will get them the trust and a reputation.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so they have to completely change the thinking. Yeah.
And just my next question is to Anita. Anita, how do you think our hiring strategies are evolving to onboard diverse population when location is no longer a constraint?
Right. So I think that it's really opened a lot of doors and windows for us, right? We used to be constrained in our mindset and the way we used to go back and say that, oh, my office is located here, hence this is the vicinity in which I'm going to hire. So we put these locational constraints. So, quite recently, in VMware, we've been trying to kind of really evolve this conversation about what Work 2.0 or what remote working is going to look like globally. We're starting to get into new requisitions that we have raised and starting to make an assessment to say that can some of these requisitions upfront start becoming, no location constraint, just time zone, driven, right? And when we were looking at it, we said that, let's put one or two of them out there and say that, this is going to be remote and it's going to be constrained by a time zone rather than a location. We were very surprised with what we saw. We saw that there was one person who had applied and, somebody showed me the resume. And this person is with, person with disability. We would have never, ever stumbled on this resume if we had told this person that you had to shift your base from so-and-so city to so-and-so city and you had to come physically to our office and work. The skills, he or she has all the skills, right? But the only thing that the person had written is that I am a person with a physical handicap, right? Now, you would have never laid your hands on that resume and that profile if you had not done what you had done. So I think that we are really throwing our doors open in terms of looking at diverse talent, which was only a mantra in most of the organizations, but can become a reality if you are going to be driving it with the right intent and with the right strategy in mind. Capabilities and quality of workforce should definitely be the vision that we should really kind of start looking and driving how we would want to hire in the future. And I'm sure that, I just gave you one example with what we were talking about diversity, but there are numerous other ways, right? I mean, we are going to open ourselves in terms of improving our gender diversity. Globally, VMware is thinking in terms of how do we improve our underrepresented minorities by opening our doors and making ourselves much more non-location centric and much more remote and distributed.
Awesome. Thanks, Anita. And just to further take it forward is my question to you, Rakesh, is that how is this impacting your strategy to introduce new infrastructure, and what are the changes that your company is going through?
In every crisis there is an opportunity. So I think rather than impacting, I would rather say, how is it helping you to accelerate? Is maybe a better way of answering it. So we are using this opportunity. So let me put it this way: the belief I carry very strongly is, if you don't need something in a rainy day, you don't need it in a good day either. Because rainy day is all about protection by the mindset of human, how you operate, right? It's like if you're in a bastion forest and you need to, fight it out to survive, and you don't need those things. You don't need it when you are in a normal world either. It's a way you look at things. So our view has been that some of the things which we could not do because we were operating in what I call a city-dependent, location-dependent, office-dependent kind of stuff. Now it is everything agnostic. And back to the point I've been saying, the technology is no borders, no language. And I think it has just accelerated. The kind of technologies we have adopted, the kind of tools which we are giving to our employees. We are thinking about in the remote corners of small towns and villages where our employees are from, given that we have approximately 200,000 people in this part of the country, that how we are going to look about it. It cannot be traditional methods. Like I said, your processes have to be, your structures have to be remote first, not office first, which has been the approach. And believe me, the startups, the e-retailers, the entire B2C industry are very good examples to shames, I call it completely steal it shamelessly kind of stories out there. And we don't have to reinvent. Srivatsa's examples of his company and what they are doing is phenomenal. You look at how the entire digital India on fintech, health tech has taken off on some of these things. Look at the entire digital money, post monetization, the demonetization. So I don't think there is any constraint. Yes, the continuous challenge for any IT organization or any company is integrations and interoperability. Because one change clearly in the digital world is you are hyper-personalized in providing services. And when you are operating in a hyper-personalized, you like Uber or you like Amazon because they cater to your need at that point in time in a day, right?
Correct.
Based on what you are doing. To make that world work, man, there are a lot of technologies disparate still from how do you bring the heterogeneity to your advantage, if I may call it, and have a very synchronized, homogeneous experience in the front. I think that continues to be one challenge, and I don't think that's going to go away. But in my way of saying it is, I think we have problems. It's good because some of these are the real ones which you need to solve to have the best of the experience for the employees. So technology is only going to accelerate, and people will find ways. Believe me, the kind of technologies we have shut off because of COVID, because we moved to work from home, we just took those decisions within 24, 48 hours. And guess what? You don't need a business case for the first time because it was a natural instinct, which is a typical corporate way of going, right? Business case, this, that. People could see it. All that was like out of the window. Now, I don't mean to be disrespectful to the processes of an organizational thinking, but I've always believed that we use this word very much in this part of the world called jugaad. Jugaad has all kinds of meanings, right? From being a good thing to somebody doing what I call a band-aid job. In my mind, hey, believe me, every business in its life cycle or maturity curve needs both those spectrums.
Yeah,
I've seen General Electric in my life as an experience. Living in US to the same GE in Asia to India, man, I have seen that entire 180-degree spectrum of processes, and nothing is wrong. Everything has a time. So I think it's a fascinating time. We should just go press the pedal and accelerate as much as technology adoption we can and make it happen. Look at it, all of a sudden, the telecom companies from where to where is the talk of the town, right? With the kind of bandwidth we all need to have this beautiful conversation. We're struggling on the balance sheets. Now it is the right place to be.
No, I think I agree with what Rakesh is saying. I think that what is important for companies to adopt is speed and agility. To say that how soon we can try things, and if it doesn't work for us, discard it and bring something new which will work for us. Yeah. I think that there are immense opportunities, there are immense platforms, and a lot of technological options available. What will work for you is what you need to try and test. And if it doesn't, discard it, make those decisions faster and move in a very agile, nimble fashion. I think that is a test for all the organizations. They cannot afford to make decisions like what they used to make previously. I think it has to be much more faster and much more amenable to what is required today in the environment.
So, Rubina, maybe my last 2 cents, maybe to add to both what Rakesh and Anita said. I think, even in when we all used to make plans, we always used to make plans like, where do you have your offices? Because you want to get those resources, right? If you ask me now, when we look back, especially on the IT technology resources, Rajasthan, for example, is a place where you find immense talent and in small villages. We never thought, is there any big company that has set up a big office in Rajasthan, in quotas, and maybe no, right? And today is the time when I think it's for organization to really think, like what we are doing is we are working with the likes of WeWork or Beehive and such places where we're saying now, have small offices, we have an office space available. So if you want to go and work in a nice infrastructure, go be there, but operate from Guna and Kota, wherever you want to be. I think that's becoming a real normal in my case. I mean, in my view, which organizations have to start, like Mr. Rakesh rightly said, it's about the effectiveness. So approval process, those bureaucracies are out of the door now. If you want to be really, in this world.
And believe me, Srivatsa, what you exactly said, people come to big cities for jobs everywhere in the world. If you if you give them livelihood in the towns which they are born and they love, the kind of commitment and efficiency they will demonstrate will be far beyond than the other way.
Absolutely. And it's just probably unfortunately our India story. If you see, we have a business in US and Canada as well. There we don't even ask the question, where is office? They all operate from home. We never asked. I mean, somebody is from Kansas City to somebody from Vegas. I mean, different parts of the world. We never thought, right?
I hate to use this word, but it's that stigma which carries, it's like the virus point Dharmendra made earlier, from a from a computer virus to a body virus. I think we feel bad about it. No, be normal. So I think all those will get broken, and hopefully the next decade will see a very different emerging Indian operating practices across all corporates. The business models are all getting challenged as we speak.
And we should talk about aping the West in a number of things, right? I think that we should start aping the West even in this model. We need to start in the mindset that we have been carrying all these years in terms of this is the way we need to operate, this is the way we need to build an organization, this is how we have to be constrained, right? I think that all that has to completely break. Like Sri said, we don't ask these questions when we hire in the West. Why would we ask those questions when we hire in India? I think that this is a time to really break that mindset and say that let's break ourselves free and do the right thing, build the right capability and talent and quality of workforce and bring them where they belong and where they are and give them the opportunity so that you have more commitment and loyalty in terms of how you induct them into the organization.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you so much, Anita. And, this takes me into the next thing. Like, we have spent so many years in designing offices, making them collaborative, making innovation rooms, design thinking rooms. Now, all that is gone for a toss, right? How do you keep people still in that mood, because in the house, they are not going to get into that mood. They're not having that creative space. So let's begin with Dharmendra. Would you like to share, what's changing from tech side? Yes.
Yeah, and I think Rakesh alluded to this, right? Jugaad in a good sense, right? And what we went through in the last 3-4 months, I think we did a jugaad in a very shortest amount of time. How do we get our people right to the extent possible, right? And I think in that context, I feel we did a lot of innovation to get this. Even I think Anita was telling when I joined the call, right? Talking to NASCOM. So pretty much when you have the good intent to sort of, make everything work, right? Everyone, will support, right? And in fact, good example from DOT that Anita was talking about, right? For the contact center users, right? And it is hard from a whiteboarding technology. And I was talking to one of our vice presidents who does a service provider business, right? He has a whiteboard behind his in his office, home office. He still wants to do it, right? And hope technology can catch up and someday we can do that. So you'll see a lot of those innovations happening also. How do we start innovating together? And one thing that we have seen also is, there is a lot more openness to come and brainstorm, even if, technology is not catching up. There is still a lot of, they care about, right? That's what's happening. And if you talk about the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, I think Sri is one among them, right? That has been built in the country. We are the second largest ecosystem. So there is no dearth of innovation. And we will do the positive jugaad in, how do we quickly adapt to the whole changing conditions. And I work with a lot of startups. And one thing that I've seen is they're already looking at, hey, by the way, for work from home, this is the solution. Then on top of it, you get for the same service subscription, right? So there are things that I'm already seeing that people are looking to innovate, right? How do we do this? Now, I'll give you an example, and to the point that Sri made about the quota, right? Whether we like it or not, the larger enterprises will have to support our employees. In last 4 months, our teams have supported our employees in at least 108 towns, right? We deliver laptops. It could be new hires. It could be, the hardware replacements. And it is, I was blown away when the team showed me the map, right? So we had from Baramulla to Kanyakumari to Dwarka West, to Jorhat in Assam, right? So pretty much all the 4 corners are covered, right? So now the employees will demand, right? And how do we work with our service providers? How do we work with our bandwidth connectivity, right? How do we work with our PC manufacturers to have a better support model? So all of that ecosystem will come, and that will drive certain aspect of innovation, right? The process innovation. So I'll pause here for any other comments from the other panelists.
No,
you said it
bang
well.
on, bang on, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can tell you, maybe add to what Dharmendra just said. So we just signed up with VMware because security was so important. And just before the lockdown, we moved to AirWatch, and it was a fabulous engagement, of course. So happy customer. But I think the idea of being secure while you're doing everything otherwise from a people perspective was so important for a business, right? So I think that is a good example of how technology can actually make things more scalable, but at the same time not really losing out on effective outcome.
Yeah, and also, Rubina, just to add, the pandemic, right, and return to office. Every day I get some kind of a flyer or a video of a company that has innovated in terms of how return to office can become much more safer, how you can measure social distancing, how you can measure temperature. Yesterday, I was looking at a video where there's this device that sees where the masks are on. So, there is a sensor-based thing and a face recognition-based thing, and it's checking for masks being on. So there's a lot of, situations that really kind of get people to start thinking very differently. I am sure that, when remote working will become a norm, and this is going to stay for a long time, and you have to do things like what you said, collaborate, innovate. I'm sure that, there are going to be these 50 companies and companies, even people within our companies who are going to say that how do we bring small nuggets and pieces of technology and platform to enable this to happen so seamlessly within the platforms and technology that we're already using in everything, right? I am sure that, that will also become an innovation that will come and hit us, and we can leverage it very, very easily and seamlessly to ensure that we work the same way that we were working when we were in a physical world.
Absolutely.
The only thing I'll add is in these kind of times, relying more on experiments is a very good approach. Like it is said, right? Let perfect not be the enemy of good. So doing those little experiments and whatever works, keep running. If it doesn't work, say thank you, drop, pick the next. Because fast, in a typical jargon, you'll say faster we fail. I would rather do many more experiments. Like Dharmendra said, everybody has shipped laptops to all those places which we have never heard of in this country. And making those people productive itself is a challenge. And then on top of it, ensuring security controls 24/7, man, that's a huge ask.
Yeah.
It's like the question I get many times: how sure are you the guy is not watching Netflix? My answer is: how sure are you that he was not watching in the previous world? Why now?
And why shouldn't he? Why shouldn't he?
But these are the reason I bring that up is to make a point that as managers, as leaders of our companies, I think we have to demonstrate, not only to our management, but to the ecosystem which we operate in, that, hey, there is an effective use and a consistent, sustainable manner. I don't look at these questions as wrong questions or wrong habits. It's about demonstrating that since the environment has changed, from office dependent to location dependent to location agnostic. Man, that's the transition we are all going through. But your outcomes remain the same, right? So how do you demonstrate with the changing environment? I think that's the way to look at these and have the right tools in the technology to show it. And more we show that consistently, believe me, that the trust goes up, reputation goes higher, and the things start falling in place. So it's just that change over, if you will, phase which we are all going through.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yes, and thank you so much, to each of the panelists. I think there has been an amazing bounty of takeaways. If I were to just summarize, I think self-management being most important. It's no longer being competitive. It's all about partnership, and over communication always helps. And IT is becoming an orchestrator, in the truest sense. We need to learn how to drive by influence. And very nice learning, Rakesh, is that if you don't need it on a rainy day, you actually don't need it, right? So also talking about the importance of integration and interoperability, I think a lot of takeaways for all our audience, who are managers, who are finding it difficult to change in the new norm. Great tips for them. And thank you so much, for your valuable time on a weekend. Not to say that even weekends are so packed, right, with all the work that comes in from the weekday.
No. I since COVID started, I have started saying this is a first day of a 2-day week. That's the world we are all living in. Right, Dharmendra? Ask the
Absolutely.
technology
I need
guys.
to get the groceries for the home now, right? Get all the groceries only on Saturday.
That's
You know?
I'm so thankful to you all for your most precious time sharing that with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thanks.
Hopefully
Pleasure
everybody
meeting you.
enjoyed
Thanks.
it. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
one. Cheers, guys.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Good weekend. Bye.
Bye. So I would like to, call upon Padmini. Would you like to take it over from here?